Today we're going to talk about the internal anatomy of the eye, and the goal of this video is to identify the layers of the eye and explain how light enters the eye. So first, what are the layers of the eye? It has 3 layers of tissue. There's the sclera. This is what's called the white of the eye, and it's made of fibrous connective tissue. This tissue protects and gives shape to the eye. Then the second tissue layer is the choroid, and this is pigmented or colored vascular membrane that includes the iris and pupil. And in just a minute, I'm going to point to the specific structures that are the iris and pupil. But for now, this membrane or this tissue layer here would include the iris and pupil. All right, and then you have the retina. The retina is this tissue layer that contains photoreceptors. These photoreceptors turn light energy into nerve impulses. Okay, so those are the 3 layers of tissue that make up the eye. Now, how does light enter your eye? This is where we're going to see specific structures that are involved in this process. All right, so the cornea is made of thick, transparent tissue, and it allows light into the eye. The iris is going to be the colored part of your eye. That's the iris, and it's located behind the cornea. The iris works with the pupil to regulate the amount of light that's entering the eye. The pupil is the opening that's at the center of the iris. So you'll see you have the colored part of your eye. If you ever look at your eye in the mirror, you have the color, you have the white around it, you have the colored part of your eye, and then you have this dark circle in the middle. That's the opening that's at the center of the iris, and that's where light enters your eye, that opening. In low light, the pupil is wide open, but in high light, or lots of amount of light, the pupil is nearly closed. And it does that so that not too much light enters the eye. Okay, so I told you I would point to some specific structures. Here you have the cornea in the front. That's just a thick kind of tissue, and it does allow light to pass through it. And then you have the iris right here. So this would be the colored part of your eye. And then you have the pupil. That's the opening that allows light to enter. So you have the cornea, the pupil, and the iris, but there are other structures involved as well. There's the lens. The lens is a semi-solid disc that directs light waves towards your retina. And that lens is controlled by muscles and ligaments, specifically ciliary muscles and suspensory ligaments. These muscles and ligaments bend or flatten the lens based on the distance of the image that's being viewed. So here I'm pointing to now the lens, so you know where the cornea is at, where the iris is at, where the pupil is at, and now we have the lens right here. And the lens actually becomes less elastic, less flexible with age. And that's what causes some adults to need corrective lenses because they actually have difficulty focusing on something being viewed when it's a certain distance away. Um, so your eye is adjusting to the thing that's being viewed by either bending or flattening, but with age, that lens becomes less flexible, so it's less able to bend or flatten, and that makes it difficult to view things. Okay, I told you that the lens, what bends the lens or flattens the lens, is ciliary muscles. So that's what these muscles are here, right next to the lens. And just a few more structures here. So in front of the lens is a fluid that's called aqueous humor. And this actually gives nourishment to the cornea. And so that's the aqueous humor that's going to be in front. I'll point to that. So that's this space right here, the aqueous humor. That's going to give nourishment to your cornea. Behind the lens, so here's the lens, behind it, you have the vitreous humor. So in front's the aqueous humor, behind is the vitreous humor. And this is this thick, jelly like fluid that refracts light and fills the space between the lens and the retina. So light's actually going to enter through your pupil, pass through the lens, and be refracted by this vitreous humor. And it's going to, that light's going to eventually hit your retina. Okay, so to sum up this video, the ciliary muscles adjust the shape of the lens, and that allows light to hit the retina. And the pupil and iris regulate the amount of light that enters the eye. And those two things, the pupil and the iris, are protected by the cornea.